Hi, my name is Jason. I work at All Out Bikes. I've been working professionally as a bicycle mechanic for 28 years. When I first got into the industry, Suntour had been out of business in the US for 2 years. And I worked along some, very talented bicycle mechanics back in the day. And I always remember that they'd be sitting there telling me, you cannot mix Shimano with Suntour, it just won't work. And of course, over the years, I did come to find out that there are some components, some Shimano components and Suntour components that are compatible with each other. Now what we have here is we have an old Derailleur. This one's the Sherpa. This one has an original Suntour XC Sport 6-speed derailleur and a 6-speed freewheel on here. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to see, because I'm not 100% sure until the end of this video, if the Shimano Freewheel will be compatible with this Suntour Freewheel. So what we're going to do is we're going to shift it to the, oh wow, it's been sitting for a while. Those chains, the chain is actually kind of rusting up. So thankfully it's already to the smallest gear. We're going to remove the wheel, and I'm going to show you a trick that I learned over the years as far as checking spacing for, showing customers that 8 and 9-speed components are not compatible with each other. And I'm going to use it on this one. So we're going to get a Shimano 6-speed freewheel, and we're going to pull it out of the box. And what I'm going to do, and let's see if we can see this, I am going to try to line up the biggest gear with the smallest gear and the smallest with the biggest, and I'm eyeballing it to see if the gears actually, and I'm trying to show you here, and these gears look like they line up perfectly. I hope you can, well, you can't really see on the camera, but trust me, this does look like it lines up perfectly. So I think that this will be a good candidate. So we're going to remove the freewheel, and this freewheel uses the standard, well, it's a common 4-prong removal tool, excuse me. And now you've got to be careful, because these Suntour tools love to shear the little pins off. So a little trick that I found was that was taught to me by a band of wandering monks is I'm going to put this tool on, and I'm going to screw this little nut on here to keep this tool from slipping. And then we're going to get our special tool today, the adjustable wrench. Not my favorite tool, but it's the only thing I could really find that has some leverage. So what we're going to do is we're going to just break the freewheel free by putting a quick amount of pressure on there quickly. Do not start to loosen this. The nut is on there, and you will damage the bearings if you continue to loosen it without removing the nut first. And I was able to unscrew it by my fingers, so you know I didn't put too much pressure on the bearings. But with that nut on there, what happens is it literally would pull the axle, or try to pull the axle through the hub, or it'd strip out these threads. We need those threads for the new freewheel. We want some grease on the threads. There's already some grease on here, but it's not going to hurt to put a little bit more on there. Clean up my mess there. We're going to thread the freewheel on. Now, this system, the way it's set up, is it's set up for indexed. So it clicks every time you want it to go into gear. Now, let's say that you've got a Suntour or something else that's not Shimano compatible. These old shifters, they would actually make them where you could adjust them from what's called friction to indexed. So I'm just going to loosen this up a little bit. There are some arrows on here, so I'm going to rotate this to friction, and then notice there's no more clicking, and you can keep it playing with the shifter until it goes into the gear you want. So if this doesn't work, we just need to put this into the friction mode. We kind of have to, because this customer has finally, after all these years, worn his components out. We are here to see if the indexed part is going to work. So I'm going to back it off until I can rotate this back to indexed. Okay, and let's see. There we go. I don't need to bother tightening the gear because the pressure on the cranks is going to take care of that issue. Let me rephrase that. The pressure on the cranks will tighten up the freewheel. A little bit of grease on the threads. Keeps them from corroding. We're going to go ahead and put some on this side too. Oh, this side already has plenty. Okay. We're going to install the wheel. Make sure it's in the dropout all the way. Sometimes it's best to, especially with quick releases, it's best to put the wheel on the ground before tightening it up. With the bolt-on, I can tighten up one side. I can pull the wheel in such a way to ensure that it's all the way in the dropout. And then I can tighten this side up a little bit. I can back off on this side and pull this other side in such a way that it's all the way in the dropout. I call that walking into the dropout. And then I can go ahead and snug both sides. Again, you don't need to go, to town, but you do want it to be snug. But notice I didn't, there were no, grunts on there. All right, let's get a 6-speed chain to put on here and take it out for a test ride. So what we've got here is I'm going to be using the Sun Race chain. This is supposed to be for 6 and 7-speed chains. Now this chain is a little bit thinner than this one because 6-speed chains really weren't good for 7-speed. It's difficult to find a 6-speed only chain, but I have found that this one works very well because it's got pickup ramps on the chain. The side plates of the chain are actually bowed out to help aid in shifting, and I found that it's actually an ideal chain for these old 6-speeds. Alright. Let's see. Now, if the chain, the old chain, is a good length, then you can just simply line up the new chain link per link to the old chain and just cut it to the same length. So I just line it up here, and I just go every several inches, and I line up the plates because whenever I get to the end of the chain, the old chain is going to be noticeably longer than the new chain. And this is even with kinks, that it's still longer. Just break the chain. Now, to break the chain, a lot of these chain tools have 2 rows. You want to use the first row nearest to the thickest plate here. Let's see if you can, yeah, see there? And you just push it through. You never use the second row. That second row is, all that's for is to loosen up stiff links. We're gonna put it through the derailleur. Now, I hope you are paying attention to how the chain was through the derailleur. It kind of does a little S pattern through there. We're going to put the chain on. Put the link together. Carefully push the pin through. If you feel any resistance, you never want to force it. It should go through quite smoothly, but you want to pay close attention to the pin because you want it to go through equally on the other side. And then we do have a stiff link. I'm going to put it on that second row. Just give it a little bit of a push, and wow, that stiff link just magically goes away. Just wipe these dirty fingers. I'm glad he's got black grips. If they were colored grips, then I'd have to put on a pair of gloves because the smallest amount of dirt, grease on your fingers transfers over. Alright, so I'm going to put the brake on, tighten up the freewheel, and it's tightened up quite a bit. Come on. Okay. So we're going to put this on the middle ring in the front. And right now, first gear, it's in first here, and first in the back. Let's go to second. Boom. Pretty good. it normally doesn't line up that good. Let's go to the next one. Sounds good. Next one. Good. 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 Check the limit screws. The high set screw is good. Let's go to the low. And the low set screw is good. Well, there's always a first. This is the first time I've installed a Shimano 6-speed freewheel to the Suntour XC Sport derailleur. Everything seems to be lining up pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and lube up the cable, and let's take it out for a test ride. On the stand, you can get it to work great, but test rides are what you need to do, because I've had so many times where I could swear that everything was right. I take it out for a test ride, and then everything just doesn't work as well as on the stand, so then I have to readjust it for riding. Oh, no slots. No slots. Pooh. Now, I am confident that if we would have put a Shimano derailleur on here with the Suntour shifter, I am pretty confident that that is not compatible. But in this case, we're just talking about a freewheel and chain, and they seem to be very similar. I have to pull the cable out of this, and I always like to wipe the cable carefully, because right here, if the cable is broken, by running your fingers over it, you can actually get a nice surprise when you get stuck by a cable. And pull this out. Wipe the dirt and grime off of the cable before pulling the housing down, because see, if there's dirt and grime on the cable, then as I'm doing this, that dirt and grime is going into the housing. We don't want that. Okay, we're going to get some of our Tri-Flow oil, and we're going to put a little bit of this oil on the cable as we're sliding it in. Less mess and thorough. Put this back through the bottom bracket guide, cable guide. We're going to wipe this again because we just slid it along that guide that's a little dirty. I don't want any contamination in this if I can help it. Put a little bit of Tri-Flow on the cable, and if you meet any resistance, if you spin the housing with the weave of the cable, the direction that it's wound, then it'll allow you to just slide it through without forcing it, and you'll be less likely to damage the cable. hook this back up, making sure that it's, you can see some indentions in the derailleur where the cable is supposed to go. We're going to go ahead and lubricate the pivots, so we're kind of giving this derailleur a little bit of a tune-up, which it looks like it's been really needing for a long time. We're going to put a cap on the end of the cable to keep it from fraying. So it's just an aluminum kind of a cup that you crimp to keep it on. Keeps you from getting stuck, keeps other people from getting stuck, keeps the cable looking good. Okay, so now that I've looped the cable, although I had to unhook it, you'll notice I'm going to shift up once and it's making a lot of noise and not going anywhere. So there is an adjustment barrel on the back where the cable goes into. You can actually back off on it, which then tightens up the cable, allowing it to shift up to the next gear. I'm going to shift down, back up. It's not quite there. I'm going to turn it a little bit more. Okay, down, up, up it again, up, up, up. Set screws are good. Wheel tight, brakes are hooked up, tires are aired up. Let's go for a spin. I just got back from the test ride, and I can say absolutely it's 100% compatible, a Shimano Freewheel with the Suntour derailleur. In fact, it works so good I would probably suggest it as an upgrade, because this bike has never shifted this good. And it's not surprising, because the old Freewheel, the teeth on there were just big blocks, whereas the Shimano, the technology has just come so far that Shimano has been able to manipulate the teeth on the Freewheel to help it shift from one gear to the next, and the Suntour of this year just didn't have that. And I was surprised at how well it shifted, because it did shift way better than I thought. So if you liked this video, if you found it handy, please leave me a big thumbs up, tell your friends, check out some of our other videos just right over here in the corner, and please subscribe to our channel just up there in the top corner, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.